Hello, hello. Today I will be making a commentary of a destroyer that have been of quite different options or quite different opinions of. The Russian Khabarovsk. It is by far the highest HP and the one with the highest potential firepower, but it also struggles a fair amount. And the biggest problem it has right now, or what it suffers from right now, is the same thing that the gearing suffers from. Basically, it's supposed to be a gunboat, so to say. You're supposed to engage in gunfights. You're supposed to exchange fire and so forth. But the huge problem right now is the terrible turret destruction mechanic. So there's so often you engage in a firefight and you lose turrets. You get punished for basically fulfilling your role, and it doesn't even have to be that you take a lot of damage. It might be the very first shell you take, and you lose a significant amount of firepower. And that's very, very frustrating. It's not as bad on the Khabarovsk as it is on the gearing. I barely even play my gearing anymore because the gearing is so frustrating. You attack a Shimokaze, and he shoots back and he destroys two of your turrets, and then he smokes up, and you're basically crippled and can't do anything the rest of the game. That's very, very frustrating. It's not as bad on the Khabarovsk, mostly because he has four turrets, and the speed and so forth allows you to maneuver better and in general avoid it. And your better range means you don't have to get up in their faces to deal damage. You can do it from further away. But it still suffers from. There's still times when you fight someone, you know you're going to kill them, you know you're going to win the fight, but just before he dies, he knocks out one or two of your turrets, and it's such a weird, punishing mechanic that I honestly have no idea why DJ decided to add it, because gunboat DDs in general already suffer quite heavily in high tiers. Like, everyone has the guns capable of hitting them. They have flatter trajectories, flatter arcs, faster shells. It's easier to hit them even with their speed. So I don't understand why they must also suffer the horrible turret destruction mechanic. Like, I play all the ships, and no other ship comes even close to suffering the same amount as the gearing does. But the Khabarovsk actually gets fairly close, but it's not as bad. It's not unplayably bad, because I still enjoy playing my Khabarovsk every now and then, whereas my gearing barely sees any play. But onto the ship itself. While it is fairly big and a bit clumsy, it has a really large turn radius, even if its rudder shift is fairly good with the mod. What it does have is firepower. Amazing firepower. Especially, for some reason, these AP shells are absolutely amazing on it. Ever since they nerfed the HE chance, or fire chance, on these destroyers, AP has become my pretty much go-to ammunition of choice, and you really do an amazing amount of damage with it. And well, actually, this will be a good example, since the Hindenburg is giving me broadside. Like, you can start seeing the numbers that pop up. As first of all, the rate of fire on the ship is insane. The accuracy is also very good, and there's 3.4k, 1.7k, 1.7k, 1.4k, 1k. It just keeps popping up. You see the damage keeps adding up and adding up. I tried to avoid most of his damage. He gets a good hit here, so I decided it's not worth it. The problem with fighting a Hindenburg that I basically used for this example is, as I've shown in my vid, the ship basically have railguns. Very fast, very accurate, very flat projectiles, which makes it so strong at shooting DDs. Which is one of my points about gunboat DDs in higher tiers, is that they are indeed so easy to hit because everyone gets these amazing sniper guns. And even those that don't get the sniper guns, like the Des Moines, they instead have insane rate of fire to compensate. So I feel like gunboat DDs are a bit lacking in high tiers right now. That's not to say like that I haven't had good performances on the ship, and in general I've been doing fairly well on my Khabarovsk, I think. But I don't know how much of that is simply because I'm so used to playing gunboat DDs, and I feel like these are much harder to perform well on compared to a lot of other ships, especially battleships that are quite straightforward, and well, cruisers and CVs you generally tend to perform. Even Japanese DDs, since you can simply hide and torp and you will be fairly useful. These seem... The turret destruction mechanic seems needlessly punishing for a ship type that is already quite challenging to play. That's basically my point. They basically made it needlessly hard for no real reason, because I have never heard anyone say that any of these gunboat DDs are particularly OP. Like the Khabarovsk, back when you could stealth fire and the fire chance was insane, then it was probably overpowered, but they nerfed the fire chance and they nerfed the stealth firing, so neither is anymore an option. They basically nerfed them both. But once again, you can see the AP power of this ship. That was a Tirpitz, a battleship, giving me a broadside. Like, on my stream I've taken to calling, or at least my viewers have, and I have taken to calling them Stalinium shells, because they're supposed to be 130mm shells, but they really give no shits about any sort of armor. This Kagero here, he was just hiding, but I saw him turn around on the minimap before he disappeared, so that's why I'm moving out of my smoke. I'm keeping an eye out to see if he's gonna try to torp me. Since I was smoke shooting, you always gotta keep an eye out on DDs around you. If it looks like one is turning around to give a broadside, it usually means he's going to torp, and that means you need to move. Especially on a Khabarovsk, which is honestly a surprisingly easy ship to torp because of the large size and the way it slides around. Actually, one guy told me that I should get vigilance on my Khabarovsk, and at first I tended to, when I first got the ship, I tended to die quite a bit, so I figured, maybe I should get vigilance instead of superintendent, because I have so many smokes left. I always die with smokes left. But then I started thinking that maybe the problem isn't that I'm dying to the torps, that I'm dying because I have smokes left. The problem is that I'm not using these smokes. I should be more, basically, I should use them a lot more often than I do. And that was actually a bit of a change I had to make from the Udaloy. I smoke up much faster, much quicker, and I'm much freer with my smokes. You saw in the beginning, even when I was in rock cover, I still smoked up. And the reason for this is not so much to protect my health, but actually to protect my turrets. Because the longer you avoid taking any damage at all, the longer you keep your full firepower available. So I have taken to being very, very generous with my smokes. I smoke up at the smallest risk of me taking damage. I tend to smoke up. And it's been very successful. My stats, which were not very impressive on the Khabarovsk, have greatly increased, so in the end I didn't go for the vigilance mod as was suggested, but I actually thanked the guy for his suggestion, because he helped me point out the flaw in my own gameplay, a mistake I was making. And after adjusting my gameplay to being more generous with the smokes, I've been having much more success with the Khabarovsk in general. Just trying to land some HE on him. He's angled, so I'm a bit skeptical with AP. These kind of shots are obviously completely impossible for the gearing. Shooting an evading cruiser at over 10 kilometers is completely impossible on the gearing because of the shell arcs. Like, he can barely even shoot there anyways, but the shell arcs are so ridiculous you can't hit anything. Whereas the Khabarovsk is very much a possibility, as you saw me setting the fire on him. I think he's dead, since the fire will probably burn him to death. Yep, I switched to AP now, since the Hindenburg is making a show again. I'm using this, if you didn't notice, another DD smoked up, and I'm basically scavenging his smoke and using it. And that's something I've taken to using it very much on the Khabarovsk, because you are such a fast ship, you can quite quickly get to like these locations. So whenever I see a DD, friendly or enemy, smoke up, I tend to use his smoke. Now his smoke ran out, so I popped my own smoke right after, and I'm undetected again. And this is something, this scavenging gameplay is a part of what I've changed as well. I'm basically taking to using both enemy and friendly smokes to my advantage a lot more. And considering how insanely fast the ship is, there's no reason not to do it. I switched to the Hipper since the Hindenburg was starting to angle and turning away. And it looks like this guy is turning away as well. This game is definitely really turning in our advantage. They still have a Shimakaze and a Kagero though, and those can turn the tide of games quite quickly. All it takes is one good torp volley. Now you can see A is being capped, and that was where I fought the Kagero. So I'm assuming that this Kagero is back at A again. I'll pop my speed. You can see the way the ship slides when you turn. It's a very slidey ship, and that's why I like the rudder shift mod on this, even if it already has a fairly good turn rate, is because you often have to adjust your turning. Like you see how it slides, basically drifting on the sea. It's kind of fun to sail because it does it, but it can also be quite frustrating when you have to avoid torps and you try to like wiggle between them. You turn into them and wiggle between them, and the ship tends to slide into them, and that can be quite frustrating. You see the Atago and the Fletcher on the minimap. They're pinching in from the north. The Yamato is pinching straight from the west, so I'm gonna go through the south because that's where I think this Kagero will be trying to escape. Because that's basically his only escape route left. He could be trying to get north, but I doubt it. Yeah, okay, here he is. He's going exactly the way I expected him. The Yamato is hurting him, the Atago is hurting him, and I'm basically waiting here with open arms. And this is something no other DD comes even close to, and that's DD versus DD battles, and the Khabarovsk is brutal at this. The accuracy, the rate of fire, the way you destroy modules, the speed. You're so hard to hit thanks to your speed. You just basically have to aim almost a screen in front of the Khabarovsk to hit him at range. And you see the constant damage, the module damage. I'm breaking the second time I broke his engine, broke his torps, broke his engine. Just raining down fire on him. He's trying to escape, but you can't escape from a Khabarovsk. That was very easy kill for me. And that's something it's much stronger than the gearing at. If I had to choose, if you put me against the gearing and Khabarovsk, I'll take the Khabarovsk any day of the week, because it's so easy to angle away from the Khabarovsk. Basically you turn around and you sail away from him and you shoot towards him, and thanks to the slow shells and the sluggish arcs, it's very hard to hit the Khabarovsk, whereas thanks to the Russian guns, you have no issues destroying the gearing. The gearing is also one of the slowest ships, so you completely murder the gearing. And that's probably one of the reasons why my gearing also has seen less play, is that you're no longer... Before the Russian DDs, you were kind of the king of the seas. No other DD could challenge you into a firefight and survive, because if you pushed into a cap, the enemy DD had to flee because you were the king of the seas. But now, even an Udaloy can completely wreck you. Hell, even probably a Kiev could even wreck you if he just kites away and uses his speed advantage. So that's kind of, I think, one of the reasons that has shifted the gearing in even lower on the rankings, or in terms of usefulness at T10. Of course, he still has the torps, but he suffers from a huge cooldown, so in the end, why not rather play a Shimakaze? He still has decent guns, but amazing torps instead. Okay, that Montana is eating a... That's a Shimakaze volley. That's good. I'm turning straight towards him then, because even though he's probably going to die looking at that volley, he has helped me identify where the Shimakaze is. And as I just said, the one thing this ship is amazing at, it's running down DDs. Yes, the detection is pretty bad on it. Yes, they can see it a mile away. But when you're coming at them with, what, 45 knots, and I'm not even using my speed boost, when you're coming at the Shimakaze that does, what, 33, 35, I don't know, at 45 knots, there's no way he can outrun you. He has no chance. Like, as soon as I see that I'm detected, then I know he's 2 kilometers away from my detection range. So basically, I just keep going straight, or well, I'll probably, at this point, I think he's straight ahead of me, because he would probably try to cap B, at least that would make sense. Or he's heading south to try to torp our Yamato. So after I get past these rocks, I'm going to turn slightly to the right and see if I can intercept him, because, oh, well, he's going exactly where I expected. I already have my guns turned this way since I was expecting him to be here. And once again, even Shimakaze has no chance against Khabarovsk. He turns away, but already he lost the turret, he lost his engine. He instantly smoked, that was clever, but gonna torp right after him, and then I'm gonna give chase. I'm no longer detected, but I can't see him either. Oh. He's being detected by the other planes. Once again, I broke something, set the fire. Like, these are so brutal against in DD versus DD combat. It's just no chance. No chance for any other DD. It's just complete wrecking. No, we ate the torps. This has a total of 10 torps. They don't see much use, but they are... oh, and you see smoke. As I spoke earlier, we're scavenging smokes. I see this Iowa pushing up, so I push into the Shimakaze smoke, and I slow down and use his smoke as my offensive smoke. This is the scavenging gameplay that I spoke of, that I've started adapting a lot more, and it's very, very potent. Oh, by the way, you see I have 60,000 damage done right now, and basically my gunner goes, Sergei, load the Stalinium shells. But Boris, you're shooting an Iowa. We have 130mm guns. How can we possibly do any damage? Well, apparently, Russian Stalinium shells don't give a shit if you're a battleship or if you're 10 kilometers away, because these shells pin everything. They really don't give a shit. I don't understand how this even makes any sense, but these shells are just amazing. So I said I had 60k damage in the top left when I started shooting. Now I'm up to 72k. And you see the DPM that this ship has. It just... the numbers don't look big, but when it's this constant rain of fire and the rapid accuracy and rapid fire rate... oh, now his smoke ran out, so I put my own smoke. So I'm basically using a double smoke by using the Shimakaze smoke to my advantage. But you can see, top left, I've done, what was 60k started, I've already done 30k damage to this Iowa. There's nothing he can do. He's afraid to rush me, because I got torps. He can't turn around anymore, because there's the Yamato pushing from there. He's trying to shoot blindly into the smoke to hit me, but he's melting. I'm literally melting him. Melting a battleship with the DD guns. That's pretty nuts in my opinion. So this is with the true strength of the ship. The guns, the firepower is insane. I'm at almost 110k. 110k damage. I did 50,000 damage to that Iowa during those smokes. 50,000. And the game ended. Probably not the most impressive. I managed top scores. Damage wise, probably not something you see often on a DD. Mostly AP damage. Almost 100k pure AP damage. Total I think I did about 127k damage. Not the most impressive damage perhaps, but it kind of highlights the point I was making about how insane the AP on this ship is. And as usual, I will begin with the modules. Now there's only one thing to get here, which is the torps. I personally have not gotten them. I think they're basically, these are YOLO torps. If you upgrade, you go for the charge in and land your torps and hopefully get out alive kind of, or ambush approach. But I personally actually prefer these 10-kilometer torps because, well, you saw how I killed the Shimakaze. That happens quite often. You attack a DD and he smokes up. And with the 10-kilometer torps, you can quite easily throw torps into the smoke while basically turning away. You can just do it while every time you turn away, you just throw torps after him. If it's a US DD who decides to sit in the smoke, he gets hit and so forth. And honestly, I find the 6-kilometer ones are simply not worth it. I prefer the 10-kilometer ones. I guess it comes down to playstyle and choice, but I prefer the added range. The added range also means that since your concealment is 7.9, you can actually stealth torp quite with a 2.1 kilometer margin, which is quite decent. If you get the other torps, you can no longer stealth torp, which I feel like is too big of a sacrifice. I mean, you also lose speed on the torps, which is, and you don't really gain any... honestly, I feel you lose too much on this. Apparently you also lose... what is it? You lose AA defense, it says? AA defense. Does it do something to your main battery? I don't know. But overall, simply not worth it. I don't see any reason to get this. Consumable wise, premium repair, premium smoke, default speed boost. I see no reason to use the premium one, since I rarely use the speed, and usually when I need it, it's ready. Upgrade wise, gun upgrade of course. Again, gun upgrades for accuracy. And here we have a bit of a change. I use the main battery mod, which gives you a nice rate of fire of 16.4 rounds per minute. And the turret traverse is so good with the right captain perks that your 180 degree turn time is only 9.4 seconds. So you basically lose nothing while you gain 12% reload. So very much worth it. Propulsion mod, as I use on all my DDs, because losing engine is the hardest thing. Turn rate, because basically the turn rate on this is fairly good, like the rudder shift is fairly good, but it's the huge turning circle and the way the ship slides when you turn, which basically wanted me to make the handling a bit more snappier. Especially when you dodge torps, so you have to overcorrect quite often, since basically your stern tends to slide when you turn, so you have to overcorrect or correct the sliding. For that I find the reduced rudder shift to be the best option. And last, of course, concealment. That's pretty much a no-brainer. Captain perks, I actually use the same captain that I use on my Mikhail Kutuzov, so if you happen to have a Kutuzov, it's easy to switch them back and forth. Priority is obviously situation awareness. Secondary is basic firing training for reload. Turret traverse, since you'll be using your guns mostly. Superintendent for the additional smoke and speed boost. Advanced firing training for the range, of course. And concealment expert. The last point I've now put into basic survivability, because the 15% reduction in turret repair and engine repair and so forth is, in my opinion, the best other option. I've toyed with the idea that when I get another point I might get torpedo armament expertise instead, but I'm uncertain because this is really such a good perk. Anyways, I will return to that when I know what I have chosen. This was my short Khabarovsk commentary. I hope you enjoyed it.